Okay, so we are really, really excited. And I will share with you, it's taken me about 3 years to have Austin come here and speak to this summit. He was supposed to come in 2019, and we had a scheduling challenge. Then we were supposed to do this in 2020, and of course, we had the pandemic. So finally, we're here. So 3 years in the makings, and Austin McChord's here. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. He's the CEO of CASANA. So, all right, so the question for you is, I know you mentioned you were like an inventor when you were young, but like, there's no career path for inventor, and there's no like job you can apply for. So you kind of had that when you were young, and then all of a sudden you had this great idea for Datto, but a lot of entrepreneurs don't move those great ideas into action. So what prompted you to take that step, take the action, and then ultimately launch Datto?
I don't know if you want to use. Yeah, I don't. So first off, like you way overstated that the original idea for Datto was a great idea, and like you don't need a great idea to start a big business or any business. You actually just need an idea. And by no means is Datto a great idea, and even now, like it's not some incredible, amazing idea. It's just something that's a little bit better that's operating at scale. And the answer with all that stuff is you just have to start doing it. Like you have to get out of whatever you're doing now and be like, I am going to go do this. And so why did I start Datto? And the answer is because I sucked at school. Like I had a 2.1 GPA, and I thought no one was going to hire me, so I will start a company, and then my next job, after I screwed up my company, I won't have to tell them my GPA. That was like the grand business plan for Datto. Like the maximum upside idea when I started Datto was that I might sell this business for $250,000, and I would buy Iron Man's car. I would get an R8, which like that's below Lambo level. You know, so it's not, it doesn't take like a huge dream to build something super impactful. It takes like taking that first step and then each progressive step after that.
Great, thank you. David.
Yeah, we'll just play musical microphones here. Yeah. So when you started Datto as a startup, you know, when did you like start to know like, wow, this is going to succeed? What types of things were happening in the business when you're like, I think we're going to make it?
Well, I mean, I don't think I ever had the feeling we're going to make it. Like, you're just always afraid. Like, the number one risk at Datto up until, like, the day that I left Datto was that Datto would blow up. Like, it would just implode on itself. And so there were points where it's like there's scale, and there were points as I raised money, I was able to take money off the table. So it was like, okay, I won't be homeless, right? Or, like, I will be able to live a good life even if Datto explodes. But yeah, like each successive day, like you look at it and you see things that are working. But for the first 6 years, we never had more than 3 months worth of cash in the bank until we raised money. And so at that point, we were a company that was doing $25 million a year and had like 800 grand in a bank account. Like if for some reason our credit cards stopped getting run, like everyone would be unemployed in like 4 weeks. You know, it's just like surreal how that can be. And when I started the company, I had hair. So like you make trade-offs, but you just have to run for it is sort of the answer. And it takes crazy, and like the people that end up with these really outsized outcomes are the people that they just keep rebetting it. And like it's not exactly advice that I would give to other people of like, oh, go bet your whole net worth 9 times over. Like that's stupid. But if you do it, they'll talk about the people who it worked out for and forget the other 10,000 that just now had to start all over. So it's a very like lopsided thing of like history is written by the victor, and like I did crazy stuff to get there. On the like, when do I know that it was sort of working? And it's just as you hire these people and like more and more of the business takes care of itself. And so when you get started, like the company, nothing works right. Nothing works. You're the one taking the garbage out at the end of the day. You're the one that's got to do all this stuff. And all of a sudden you're like walking around the office and you're like, wow, like these deals are happening and I didn't even know about them. And like these problems are getting solved and I wasn't even involved. And so like that's kind of the part of like, wow, this is working. But at that point, when those low-level things are working, you've got some other fire that you're like, oh my God, I'm going to die tomorrow. And it was like, sometimes you drive home from work and you're listening to music and you're like, I'm the king of the world. And sometimes you drive home from work and you're like, I'm horrified that I have to go back to this shit show tomorrow. So it really does run that gamut.
Sometimes we have those feelings in the same day.
Yeah, you can definitely have them in the same day. And the idea that if you grow a really big business, they go away is total bullshit. They're worse. Like now they just, instead of affecting 8 people, they affect 800. And so, yeah, you just kind of have to learn to live with it.
Next question is about raising money. So I guess the first question is, when you started Datto, did you know that you were going to raise money? And if so, how did you go about it when you started raising money? Did you know anything about it, or what were some of the first steps in learning about it and then doing it?
And there probably wasn't WeFunder and Kickstarter back then, or maybe there was.
I mean, I don't think so. So when I started the company, I wanted to raise money, and I went out and tried to raise money, and people were like, no. They're like, this is a bad idea. They're also like, you cannot build a hardware product in your basement. Like, that is not a scalable solution. You don't have any experience or knowledge or like reason why we should back you. You do not have a team. Your deck sucks. Like, every part of the things, they were just like, no. And so my mechanism is I just ran up $80,000 in credit card debt, which again, do not recommend. Not an answer. But like that was what I did. It's crazy. And so then I did eventually raise money, but it was 6 years in. And the point when I raised money is what happened is a big strategic came along, and they were like, Austin, we like your business, we want to buy it. And they offered me $100 million to buy the company. And I owned all the shares because I didn't even know how to give anybody stock options, so they didn't get them. Like, we just did bonuses. Like, when we had a good year, I just told the senior team, I was like, just go to the car dealership and get your favorite car. I'll pay for it. Like, all sorts of weird stuff. But, yeah, so this company wanted to buy us, and they were going to lay off, like, a lot of the staff, and, like, the direction they wanted to go I didn't agree with, so I told them no. But at that point, I knew I had a company that was worth $100 million. And so then it's a lot easier to go raise money because, like, I know what I'm working with at that point. And, like, the VCs came and they found me, which they had done all along, but I was kind of just telling them off. And then at that point, I became a lot more open to having that conversation. But I think, like, I can talk a lot more to the whole raising money thing because after I left Datto, I spent a year working at one of the best venture capital firms in the world and, like, saw the whole other side of the table, which is super fascinating. And then, like, CASANA, I knew that I did want to raise money and raise money right away. And it's almost amazing, like, how easy that is once you understand what that narrative is and what motivates a venture capitalist and how they think about it. And, like, we went and took an idea that Nick, our founder, had struggled for a very long time to raise money and showed up and, raised money right away. So it's sort of wild how that stuff happens.
Now, you had just mentioned you got an offer for $100 million to sell your company. Yeah. Some would argue, okay, you've arrived, right? That's the golden objective. But I know with that came potentially laying off employees. With that came, I guess, giving up something that you had put all that time, effort, and sweat equity into. Why did you determine at that time it was time to go out, raise more money, and keep the company going versus, okay, maybe this is what the time to sell?
I mean, I think because at its core, like, my brain could not process the concept of $100 million. And so it's just like, this is a comically large number. So I really just didn't believe it. And I was having too much fun. So I said no. And like, at the time, I loved what I was doing. So all of those things were reasons for saying no. And then it gives you, like, enormous energy to be like, all right, you've made this choice. Now how do you make sure that this choice is not the worst mistake you've ever made in your entire life? And, I lucked out. Like, Datto eventually sold for many times over, that $100 million point. So it really, really worked out. But yeah, I didn't start the company solely with, like, some number in mind. It was just like, I will do this and see what happens.
All right, so fascinating that you grew a company from scratch, and you grew it to a large company, got a lot of money, but you reached a point where you knew it was time for you to step aside. And so tell us about that experience. Like, how did you know it was time for you to go? Why'd you want to go? All that stuff.
Sure. So like I traded my like 20s for Datto. And that was the answer. And so while my friends were like, oh, we moved to Australia for a year, or we did this cool thing, or even like I worked this dead-end job, but it was awesome because I surfed every evening. I was like, cool, I'm in my folks' basement writing code. Like it sucked. And I got 11 years in. I had sold the company to a private equity firm at that point, so I had raised 2 rounds of funding. Company was already valued at over $1 billion. Sold it for around $1.5 billion to a PE firm. I was the majority owner at the time that I sold it, so the PE firm cut me like you won the lottery 5 times over level check. Like I did not know they had those digits for the ATM level, and but I'm still, running the business, just going to work, doing the same things. And it was actually kind of this wild point that a friend of mine who ran our UK office, and it's a bit of a sad story in that like he came to visit or was like on a business trip and he got hit by a car like right in front of the office and killed. And you just realize that like you don't know when your story ends. And like this guy, he had just made a few $1 million, like finally made it big, like so much struggle, and then like it's over. And I was like, I don't want the thing that they write of like, here is Austin, he did Datto. And it's like, I want there to be more to my life than like just the 5 letters. And so, it felt like the single most selfish choice I had ever made in my entire life, like to quit. And it was like really emotional because like the senior team was like my family, and like when I announced the company, like people cried, and it was just like I was like, I'm not dead, like I'm still a person, but it was just really weird. But I don't regret it.
I was just saying, looking back, was it the right decision?
Yeah, totally. You do not want to run a big company in COVID. That sucks. I feel bad for Tim, but that was did not know that was coming. But no, I don't regret it at all because it allowed me an opportunity to live my life and to do different things, and my life is incredibly different now. And while Datto has continued to grow and be more successful, and there's things that I regret that like, hey, if I was running Datto, we would have done this differently, and the current CEO has slightly different values than mine, and I have to like let him do what he thinks is right. But yeah, I don't spend a lot of time like wondering like, man, I wish I ran that, like, because it's just a totally different thing. And to go back to actually running a small business and doing the little stuff and like riding that wave up, that's so much more fun than when your company is thousands of employees and you're like the general with the little rake being like, we'll put 60 engineers over here. Right, whereas instead it's like, oh, I'll go sit with the engineers and figure out what's going on, and it's like way more hands-on.
So Austin, when I had outreached to you a couple of years ago and we started talking about having you come in to speak like to an event like this, you had said back that I love talking to the startup community, I love talking to entrepreneurs, but when you look at this diverse audience from a wine company to a professional soccer team, we've got a sanitization company back there, outsourced business solutions, very diverse, and they're not all IT, and they're not all going to be $100 million companies maybe. What's your like advice that you give to an audience like this, or to startups or entrepreneurs that are, like you said, maybe they don't even know where this thing's going, but they know that they're believing it, they're passionate. What do you tell them?
I mean, certainly don't do whatever the hell I say. Like seriously, like. You're running this business and you should follow your dream, and maybe your dream is to build a big business, and maybe your dream is just to make a paycheck or to expose something or make a change in equity, and all of those things are fine. And don't worry about what some goofy entrepreneur thinks, but instead chart your own course. And all along the way, when I was building my business, they were like, oh, are you going to be the next Mark Zuckerberg? And it's like, no. I don't care what Mark Zuckerberg's doing. I'm going to do what I want to do. And like you have one life. This is yours. If you want to go start a business with it, great. And build it as you want. And don't let a whole bunch of other people go in and change it and turn it into this thing that it's no fun, that you're not enjoying it, or you're doing somebody else's vision, or you've contorted it into some unnatural thing because you read some book and it was like, this is how to do a business. The answer is there is no right way. People have built huge, incredibly successful companies that treat their employees like shit. People have built huge, incredibly successful companies that treat their employees like gold. Like, each one of those, there's always an opposite to every answer. And like, you don't have to raise a ton of money, and you can look at like the Spanx lady, you know, she took no outside investment, built a huge business. And then there's like Uber that's like built out of venture capital and was a huge business. And so it doesn't matter. There's a zillion different roads, and the key single most important thing is that you find what you're doing is actually fulfilling and you're enjoying it. And if you're not, then stop running a goddamn business and go get a different job. But like this idea that there's like one single path or single set of advice, I just think is not the right way to think about it. And like, if you have a specific question and you're like, how do I go raise money from this type of person? And it's like, here's some experience I have and I can tell you that. But like at a full macro level, like I don't know the first thing about how to run a great wine business. And so I would certainly not like give advice there. Or the same thing with a soccer league, like, oh man, that sounds really hard. I have no idea.
So I want to ask the audience here. This company now is CASANA. Does anybody know what they do by chance? Well, I know you know. Anybody else? What's that?
Sorry, I can explain.
Well, I think it's fascinating. You go from this.
I'll take them on the journey.
I think it's fascinating that I don't know if anybody would ever guess it. You go from this incredible technology company to toilet seats.
Yeah, well, you're like,
Leave it at that.
comedian, and you're like, hi, I'm going to drop the punchline and not let you tell the story. But yeah, it's like, what could possibly be more boring than data backup? And it's like toilet seats. But that is like, if there was a dream, right? My macro dream is to be the Elon Musk of the most boring businesses on earth. But no, the toilet seat thing is amazing. And so, first off, like, yes, it's an effing toilet seat. Second, its magic trick is that it can get your blood pressure and get a whole bunch of other vitals. So it can get your SpO2 and like how much water retention, and do ECG. It's all the stuff that a fancy Apple Watch and a trip to the doctor's office can do. But the thing that gets me excited is actually the same thing that gets me excited about backup. When it works really, really well, you forget you own it. You do not have to interact with it. You do not have to think about it. It just does what it is supposed to do in the background. And those kind of businesses, to me, get me super excited. Like, Facebook sucks in that in order for them to be successful, they must consume every minute of your day. And, like, they compete against the time you spend sleeping, the time you spend doing everything else. Whereas my product takes 0 minutes from your day. It is not involved in consuming your time at all. And it just is in the background. You are there. You did not come there because you wanted to check your blood pressure. Your body had given you other reasons why you needed to go to the bathroom. But yeah, so like that stuff is what gets me really excited. And this, is a circuitous route to how I got here, but it's a really exciting chance for me too, in that this product has an incredible founder. I'm not the guy. I'm actually not smart enough to figure out how to build a toilet seat that can feel the motion of your heart. Like, that's insane. Like, the sensor technology and deep math behind that is way beyond me. And instead, it's this really cool guy, Nick, and he's, lives in Rochester and had this idea at RIT, and now I get to, like, take Nick on this journey, and it's like, Nick, together, we're going to build this into a huge business. And, like, we can make a whole bunch of money, causing people to live longer, saving lives. Like, what could be more fun than that? And we go to work every day in an office where all we do is tell toilet jokes. Is there any left? I mean, I've heard them all. But like, it is everything that you could imagine and more, and just the questions that we have been asked and thought, and the terminology that has come up. Like, and it just, yeah, it was a workplace and somebody brought up anal folds and didn't have to go to HR. So like, yeah, it's wild.
Well, you're looking for some more content for one of your comedy shows, so I think you could.
I think we're going to do a little partnership there, right?
Yeah. Now, sadly for me, I might actually be a client of yours because I suffered a heart attack a couple months ago, and knowing I got to keep wrapping that stupid blood pressure thing on is a total pain. So if I can just do my thing, get my blood pressure, and have my doctor check it out, that's pretty interesting to me. Sure. Oh, well, I didn't. You didn't? Okay. Well, I'll talk to my wife in the back about that. No, thank you. That's really cool. And that's not why I said that. I just thought that's super cool because I have to do the stupid band now, and it's like really annoying.
If you are in the Rochester area, we will pay you $30 to come use the bathroom in our office. You can go to casanacare.com. You can sign up, schedule an appointment to spend time by yourself in a bathroom, and we'll pay you to do it. That's true. We are actively seeking volunteers.
Do you serve a garbage plate beforehand?
You can eat whatever you want. That is fine. We'll actually pay you more if you come back. We actively are seeking people who want a smart toilet seat in their home or would like to come use one in Rochester.
I'm seeing the ad now. Get paid to poop.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If I get one, you can't make fun of me, though.
Dollars for dumps, right here. See, this is what I mean. You've heard it all.
I love it.
David, by the way, let's pause for a minute. I know this is always the awkward part, and we didn't plant any questions out there, but does anybody have a question or they want to ask Austin, if you're comfortable with that? This is always the awkward.
Does anybody want to get paid to poop?
Genevieve.
Look at that. There we go.
Genevieve, you got to have a question for Austin. You do. Am I putting you on the spot?
I don't have a question, but I know what I'm hearing because I do believe in all what you're saying. And because the point in life is to love what you do. There's no other reason. And when you're an entrepreneur, that's the purpose. It's loving what you do. And if you can add quality of life and building quality of life, it doesn't need to be extravagant, but just your own perception of what is a good quality of life for yourself and build that and just stick to it because if you wait for approval, it doesn't come, because people project what they cannot do for themselves to you. So it's just everything you have said resonates so much with me, but sometimes you just have to hear it. And even not one time, like over and over, it's like repetition, it's like goes right down into your subconscious mind where it's like, there's no other way to live my life is to do what I love. That's just the way to live.
Absolutely. I don't know. It's hard. She didn't ask a question, so it's difficult to deliver an answer. Yeah, go for it. New Hampshire? I mean, Rochester, New York. No, I live in Boston, outside of Boston, Cambridge. Yeah. No. I grew up in Connecticut. Yeah, fire away. Yes.
So you must have seen lots of opportunities.
Yes.
CASANA was the one, right? I want to get back
I think it was more, I believed in Nick's idea, but it was very clear Nick wasn't going to win on his own. And it was like, I can do this. I can make these widgets. I've made widgets before. I can build a sales team. And he's got the science side. And so the opportunity to put those two together was really interesting. But working at General Catalyst, I probably saw several thousand business ideas come across my desk. And Nick's was one of the more fascinating and unique ones. And the reason why it stood out is that it's quirky. And a lot of people don't get excited about that stuff because it's not sexy. And that caused it to be overlooked by a lot of people. And sometimes great ideas get overlooked because they're not super sexy. Yeah, fire away.
So what are the 5 things you look for when you go through all those steps? What are the 5 elements?
So different people look for different things. For me, if I'm going to put my money to work, and I've invested in a whole bunch of small businesses, and I have a small venture fund where I set my own money on fire, investing in businesses. And so the first thing is this a real business? So does this business work without capturing the entire market? Like the only way for Uber to be successful is to destroy all taxi services first, right? And that's like a very expensive, long, complicated road to get there. So those sit outside my purview of like, I really don't want to invest in that kind of business. Then it's, you know, looking at like the core economics and making sure like the unit economics are solid, that like, yes, this will make money. Does it solve a real need? And like ensuring that there's like a real market. And do I like and trust the people who are running it? Because no matter how much you like a business, if you don't have faith in the leader, do not put your money at risk there. And like that's super important. Every venture capitalist will like tell you that, and then you just get burned almost 100% of the time. But I've invested in all kinds of crazy stuff, like a company that uses robots to process laundry, and they want to build these giant factories where like dirty laundry goes in one side and it comes out washed, dry, clean, folded out the other. And it was like, that's impossible. And it was like, we went and did the Willy Wonka demo and showed how that could be done to somebody that's like, hey, I've rethought the software for building electronic circuits, and it could be made infinitely better. And it's like, yes, this software does not suck. Like, I will invest in your business. So it really can be all kinds of weird stuff.
How important are the financials?
Not that important. I mean, the area, like, at least for me, is like looking for those people that are just starting to get sales. And how do you tune that? But I think it's more just the core. Is there demand? Is there market? Like, are there people who would want this? Because the sales stuff takes a little while to figure out, and like, I'm willing to take my time with that. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, or you had a question. Somebody behind you.
So, a million people saw the business about the same time as you did.
Yep.
What do you think made you different that made you be successful where most of them cheated out of there?
So first and foremost, I was lucky. And like, you cannot discount that. You worked hard, which like, that's a requirement. But again, if you don't get lucky, lots of people work really hard and run their businesses into the ground. And then I think that I wasn't particularly married to like some unique vision, and instead was willing to adapt to find a customer, and was like, I am going to make this business work. And we started and we wanted to sell direct, and then we realized maybe there's a market in distributors, and then we pivoted our entire business to go after distributors, and then we weren't making enough money, we were going to go out of business, and it was like, you know what, we can knock off this competitor and probably do a better job than them. And so we just threw this Hail Mary, and we're like, we're going to create their version of the product. And so we did that, and then it was like, we're going to sell it at half their price, and that started to get sales going. And then it was like, oh, we could leapfrog even that further and think about like an even different part of the product. But it was just keep going, and it's like those people that if you're super married to like one direction and you're like, I don't know, you're going to make like, you're going to sell carbonated only lime juice, and people are like, this tastes terrible, and you're like, screw you, that's your problem. Like that, a lot of people who get that mindset, like they go into the ground because they're not listening to their customers. At the same time, if you listen to everything that your customers ask for, you end up with like the Homer Simpson car that's unbuildable and no one wants it. So it's like this weird middle in between that you got to do. Yeah.
What do you do for fun when you're not working?
I like to travel, and you know, like normal stuff. I like to ski and hike, many. But I bought on the crazier side, I bought a warehouse and basically filled it with like everything like the nerdiest 12-year-old ever would want. And so I have all of that, and you could show up there, and if you want to build a scooter or an iPad, like I have all of the parts and components to make all of that at any moment. I have like a ball pit you can swim in, because I once filled somebody's office to the top with ball pit balls, and they were like, that's cool, but I can't work in here like that forever. So I have an enormous ball pit. I started a robot combat league that then became the world's largest robot combat league, which is why I'm actually flying back to Connecticut tonight, because we're having another event. And then that got so big that a streaming service asked me to produce television episodes for it, which I don't know anything on how to do that. So I hired somebody who used to run like Katie Couric Media, and now she is in charge of the Robot League, and like next year that will be a TV show. So like really, really weird shit is what happens, and it's like you just keep pulling these threads. But generally, like, I'm a big fan of irreverence, and so I just like to do lots of goofy stuff. And like, I have the Guinness World Record for the world's largest googly eyes, like, just because I wanted that. And so I was like, I will build 12-foot googly eyes. It's not even that big. But yeah, the previous record was 3 feet, which is just comically small. Yes.
So we have started a bootstrap hackathon.
Cool.
The largest hackathon in the world is right across in Ontario, Canada. They're like 15,000 square feet for 5 people.
Okay.
They're providing $1 million of projects around the nation.
Yeah.
How do you find the 5 people who do like trucks and get it built?
So when I look to hire people, I look to give them a job that is more responsibility than they have ever handled before. And so whatever job this is that they're getting, this is the apex of their career. And so maybe they might have done the stuff and they had the experience and they were number 2 in marketing somewhere. And it's like, great, I want to hire you to come be number 1. And they've never been number 1 before. But looking for those people that, like, when they come to take this role, they're like, this is my chance. This is my big break, right? Those people will work the hardest. They'll be the most connected with the direction. Whereas if you bring in the person and they're like, they've been number 1 at marketing 6 times, when you hire them, they'll be like, hi, this is the 7th time. Here is how marketing works. This is what you do. And you're like, well, but wait, we might be different. No, this is what you do. And like, it's hard to get them to adapt to whatever you're doing. And so it's finding those people that like have that opportunity to believe. And so like even with this robot thing, like I hired this lady who's run production companies and she's like a vice president. And I was like, great, you are CEO of a robot combat league. You don't know anything about robot combat, but you appear to be a very smart lady and you have a lot of skills and talents. Like, do you want to come? Like, you have to figure all of this out. You have 2 years. Go. Right? And it's like that chance. And you give them as much control and as much scope as possible. And it's those people that are going to run and get excited by that that will work best as your early team. You're welcome. Then what will suck is if your business gets really big, you'll have to fire them. No, seriously. Like, this is one of the challenges that happens as you build bigger and bigger is that you'll outgrow your team. And like what gets you here won't get you there. And you have to constantly sort of rethink as you cross different sort of lines. And a lot of times it's really painful because you have these people that were amazing that got you, from A to B or maybe from B to C, and all of a sudden they're drowning and they can't get you from C to D. And it's not because they're not, they don't want to. It's just like they cannot acquire the skills fast enough for the rate that your business is going. And like you have to make really tough calls and decisions with that. And that is like the single hardest thing as like a CEO of a fast growing company. Yeah, it sucks. I do just generally like making adults cry. It's like not fun. I would not recommend. And like you do what you can. You give them the best severance, but like they're believers in your mission, and so it's like very tough. No, we got in the back. I met him. Yeah, he's quirky. Yeah, well, he has the first thing, and my version of robots is way more destructive. It involves fire and saw blades, and yeah. Yeah. You know what's super fascinating? They use those same pumps in Coke Freestyle machines. So like the same sugar that gives you diabetes will then be used also to like keep you alive. But if you ever pop open the Freestyle machines, it's full of Deca pumps. Sorry, just a really weird fun fact. Anyways. I know, but it just the pump, the same microfluidics pump, like, is used for. Yeah. Yeah, believe it or not, in the fancy pants world of people, the person most obsessed with toilets is Bill Gates.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but he's a quarter canceled right now. So.
Yeah, I know, right?
cool. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Or you were next, sorry.
So do you do like partnerships with like crawlers from sort of community?
Not yet. I mean, we don't get involved in anything that comes out of you. Like, we're mainly involved in like the heart stuff, and just like it's a place where you will be where we have skin contact. And so that's like the key magic trick for us. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I mean we have, or at one point, like it was at least like 400 employees in Rochester from the Datto side, and CASANA has somewhere pretty close to like 30 employees in the Rochester region. Like I'm a big Rochester fan. It is a great place to hire incredibly skilled, incredible talent, and I honestly just wish they'd like RIT and Rochester as a whole like was a little bit better at like dreaming bigger. And I have like lots of bones to pick with Rochester venture capitalists, and that they're very narrow and they think very small sometimes, and like that frustrates me. And I found like the entrepreneurship programs at RIT have been a little bit frustrating in that same sense, and that people here should dream bigger and not like constantly think of themselves on like this Rochester scale. And even today, like I was at the board of trustees meeting, I was talking to somebody at RIT, and they're like, well, maybe it's just a Rochester thing. And it was like, yeah, you know, like Kodak and Xerox kind of missed out on a few opportunities. But I'm not willing to just like accept that as a mistake. But I get excited when I see that like people who worked at Datto like left, and then they've started something here in Rochester. And some of Datto's competitors have moved and opened offices in Rochester to steal employees from Datto, which is like not great, but like great for Rochester. And so it's really interesting to see kind of the impact that you can have on a region. And like Rochester has tremendous potential. There are like just so many super smart, capable, talented, hardworking, awesome people. And it's like an affordable place for office space, and it's relatively business friendly. But yeah, like its general populace, I just wish they would just dream a little bigger. Yeah.
That's it. Well, thank you. If people want to get in touch with you, do you accept phone calls, emails?
Yeah,
tweet?
Generally email is more like better than phone call. That's weird if you just like call me out of the blue. But yeah, just it's like Austin at McChord.net. Or you can like message me on LinkedIn or something. But yeah, fire away.
So you mentioned the word luck, and when I talk to a lot of successful entrepreneurs or business leaders, they're going to say, well, luck really didn't have much to do with it because I did this in my basement, and I'm the one who went out and got loans, and I'm the one who put $80,000 on my credit card, and I worked my ass off for 10 years. What does luck have to do with it? But you mentioned that, so I'm just curious. Can you speak to that? Because without all the other things, you could be as lucky as you want. It's just not going to. It's not like rolling a magic dice and there you go, right?
Well, everything you described there was risk, right? Like money on credit card, working really hard, like all these things. Like you're risking, you're increasing what you're betting. But like the luck factor is that no one else tried to start the same business as me. My competitors made some really poor choices at like really great times for me. Did I help them make those poor choices? Yeah, I tried to. Like I wanted to push them in that direction or make them think about something this way. But it does take luck to get there. And I think like for me, like it's just really important to like keep internalizing that, because otherwise you would like wake up and be like, look at how fucking great I am, right? And it's like, no, I'm very lucky, and I have to remember that and like think about like how can I give back? How can I it is not possible to earn this outcome. Like the outcome, the way that capitalism works, the outcome is like so astronomically tilted toward the few that it's like you get like tens of thousands of people's lifetime economic output. They're like, we will accrue that to you, and you're in your 30s. Enjoy. Like, and that's like really, that's luck. Like you have to, like if you wake up and you're like, no, I worked 10,000 people hard. Like that's not a thing. You can't work 10,000. Like everybody only gets 24 hours a day, and even if you worked all 24, like that would mean you worked like an extra third. So hard work is required, but it does take luck. And I think for me, it's like one of the reasons you go back and you do it again is because it does at least help validate, like, did I just get really, really lucky the first time, or do I have some skills? But I think that's the hardest part out of the whole thing, because you can't be like, oh, well, what is your advice for founders? And I'd be like, just be really lucky. That's all. Like, that's, like, you have no control over that by definition of the word. I do think, like, you do have to work really hard, but I think it's important to, like, know those points when it's like you're going to lose, or you just didn't get lucky, or you missed out. So maybe, like, if you're going to try to spin that, and you'll hear some people talk about, like, how you deal with and think about failure. And so, like, when you get bad luck, like, how do you manage bad luck? Is also, like, a key part of if you want to build something really, really big. And, like, I got a lot of bad luck, and there was crazy stuff that we just got started. We started selling our devices. It was like we were taking off, and then the core component that we used in our product, they're like, this is discontinued and we'll never make it again. I was like, oh my God. So I had to, like, redesign the entire product. But, like, the luck part was that the new components that I chose to design it with, like, I went in a different direction, enabled an entirely different business line. And so, and ultimately it was that other business line that made the business successful. So in one hand, was really unlucky they discontinued the thing just as I was successful. But on the other hand, I was really lucky that they discontinued it because I changed my business and, like, found a better one. But, like, that choice happened on some random Tuesday. Like, it wasn't a specific thing. And so it's hard. You just have to be kind of ready to deal with all these things that come at you and not, like, hide or run from them, but instead be like, okay, here I am, and what will I do next? And even, like, in the toilet seat, like, we've had a whole bunch of different things that have come at us and just require different thinking, or all kinds of different, like, pragmatic thinking that were different designs. And, like, I'm trying to think of, like, I can't think of, like, a really good bad luck example, but I can think of, like, the pragmatic thinking type stuff that you run into, and that Nick designed this toilet seat originally, and it was, there are two types of toilets in the United States. There's elongated and round. And he was like, oh, it's genius. I worked with the manufacturer, and they have a type of toilet seat that fits on both elongated and round. It's a combo. And I saw it, and I was like, the seat looks a little weird. Like, something's a little off. And he had, like, already moved down the road to go get these things manufactured. And I called the company. I was like, how many of the combo-sized toilet seats do you sell? And they're like, almost none. I was like, oh. And it's like, why is that? And they're like, well, it looks terrible on both toilet types. And so, like, some of that pragmatism, you've got to be like, no, we're just going to pick one. Like, most new houses are elongated, so we just go with elongated. Like, you just have to, like, make some choices. But it's figuring out, like, how you make those choices. And, like, that would have been a huge mistake if we had ran forward and made tens of thousands of them and then started putting them on people's seats, and everybody like, these look really weird and, like, are not right. But it's, yeah, being able to adapt to that, which I know I've now strayed way far away from luck. But you won't know the full challenges that you expect. Like, weird things will happen, and some people have incredibly great ideas and do all the right things and just get unlucky. And, like, you can, like, a good example is, like, when you have those format wars, right? And it's like, is it going to be Blu-ray or HD DVD, right? And then that was, like, a thing, but then they actually were both wrong. It's going to be streaming. Like, you'd both invested billions of dollars down a direction, built competing non-compatible formats, and we're like, this is the way, and everybody's like, oh, this decision's really bad. I'll just get a Roku. And, like it's sort of, you know, the engineer might have been incredibly brilliant in designing, like, the Blu-ray, but he lost. And he was just unlucky. It was, like, not at the right time, at the right place. And so it's very hard to know, like, when something like that will happen to you. And you can't just let that be your fault. You've just got to be able to be like, okay, like, how will I dust off and, like, go in a different direction now? Thank you. Sorry, that was...
Thank you. No, that was awesome. David, you... Good?
I'm good. Thank you very much. That was fantastic.
Yeah, that was worth the 3-year wait. So thank you, Austin. Appreciate it.
Big round of applause.
Thank you, everybody. And with that, I think there's a little... Thanks, Austin. A little more beer and wine back there. Feel free to mix and mingle a little bit. And I really appreciate everybody coming to this event. It's a first event after COVID, and Thank you so much. And hopefully all of you got good relationships, good networking, and creative collisions. Thank you so much and appreciate everything. Thank you again, Austin. Thank you.